It's a privilege and a pleasure to be able to share a few thoughts on behalf of Epic Families, an organization that's known worldwide for the wonderful work that they do in terms of mentoring for young yeshiva students, which is a critical need today, and maybe more than ever, that so many of our Talmidim have, and the work with parents, helping them and guiding them in dealing with the challenges that their children and that youth today are faced with, and youth today provide for parents. So it's a wonderful organization, a wonderful effort, a critical effort in terms of maintaining the balance between chinuch and the home, and assuring that our children go in the right derech, which is not today by any means to be taken for granted. So I want to thank the organization, the Epic Parenting, for this privilege to be able to participate. The Vilna Gaon writes in Mishlei, Perek Chav Beis, Iker nesinas haTorah lYisrael hu, kadei sheyasimu bitchonim b'Hashem. The Iker, the main part of the giving of the Torah, which we're going to celebrate on Shavuos, is that Klal Yisrael should put their trust in Hashem. And it seems that the relationship with Hashem, trust, of course, is the essential, is the most basic ingredient in relationship, is the critical goal of the Torah. The Torah was given to enable us, to provide us the means, the ways, the derech, to develop this relationship with Hashem, this relationship of bitoch with Hashem, which is the most critical and essential ingredient in our lives of as Jews and as ones who are dedicated to Torah and mitzvahs. Therefore, I'd like to talk a little bit about, I guess, if you will, introducing our children to our best friend, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You know, Chazal tell us, Gemara in Shabbos, that when when a goy came to Hillel, and he asked him to teach him Kol HaTorah Kol HaRegel Achas. So Hillel said the famous words, that which was hateful, don't do to your friend. Zeh Kol HaTorah Kula. This is the essence of the whole Torah. V'idach Pirusha. The rest is explanations. Zil Gmor, now go and study. And Rashi, in the first pshat, says that that the chavercho that Hillel was referring to, the friend, is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That the essence of the Torah is, don't destroy the relationship. Don't disappoint the friendship that you have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and act in a way which would be contrary to the parameters of that relationship. We see that relationship with Hashem is a paramount factor in the giving of the Torah, and described by Hillel as maybe the essence of Kol HaTorah Kula. So thought it would be appropriate to share a few thoughts about that relationship. I think back to the early days when my children were younger, and to one incident which occurred, seemingly not so significant an incident, but it served as a foundation to that relationship that they were developing, and Hashem that they developed with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We were living in the San Fernando Valley at the time. We had come there maybe 2 years before to establish a yeshiva in a community which had never had really a yeshiva for the most part. And it was an uphill battle, to say the least. Financially, it wasn't a wealthy community. And at the beginning, it wasn't all that supportive of the work that we were doing. And it was a summer during, maybe it was July or early August, and my children were in a day camp in the city. We lived in the valley, and it was 10:30 at night, and my oldest daughter, must have been about 8 at the time, she comes to me and she says that she's asking for 75 cents because she's going with her day camp on a trip tomorrow, and she wants, money to buy a soda. I searched. I didn't have 75 cents. Things were tough. And she said, what should I do? I said, you should say Tehillim. I don't remember if she looked askance a little bit or not, but she obliged, sat down with her younger sister, and they're reciting a few kapitlach tilim. In the middle, she says to me, well, I don't get it. I need the money tomorrow morning, early in the morning. I'm leaving 7:30 in the morning for camp. What's going to change between now and then? And the little kid, who was about 4 years old, mumbled something about, oh, maybe someone will have to give you. Maybe someone will think to give. I don't know. Some seemed like nonsense. Anyway, she went without the 75 cents. She comes home, and she has a very interesting story to share with us. She has a friend of hers who, at the Purim carnival, which must have been 4 months before Purim in the middle of the summer, had borrowed 75 cents from her. They had forgotten about it. Nobody ever mentioned it. It was gone. Wakes up that morning and says, wow, I owe the Cohen girl 75 cents and I never paid her back. She brings the 75 cents to camp to pay my daughter. My children learned from this so many basic, critical lessons in their relationship with Hashem. Number one, Hashem cares about 75 cents or having a soda during a hot day when you're, on a trip. And Hashem listens to tefillas. He listens to tilim. He responds to those that, when they don't know what to do, they turn to Him, put their trust in Him, pray to Him, and miraculously, and He puts a thought in the mind of this girl, who both of them had forgotten about this for months, that she owes her 75 cents, exactly that number, and she brings it. But I think there's something else in this story which I'd like to share with you. And I'd like to share it with you with another story. Because I believe that introducing our children to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, through His hashkocha protis, through His active involvement in our lives, through the nisim nistorim, in the language of the Ramban, that we experience every moment of our existence, is maybe the most critical ingredient to bringing them close to Torah, to bringing them close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and to giving them such a positive relationship with Hashem that it will guide them and strengthen them to maintain that relationship and only expand upon it in a very positive way for the rest of their lives. Also in the Los Angeles days, I knew an individual who was an 8th generation descendant of the Vilna Gaon. And he told me a story when he was grew up in Russia, and he eventually ended up in Los Angeles. And he told me the following story. He says, when I was 17, 18, around that age, it was the Bolshevik Revolution. And his father had been very close to the Tsar. And the young Bolsheviks had marked his parents as victims of their revolutionary efforts. And he walks into his house one day, and he sees his mother being held at the knife point of a bayonet, I guess to her throat, being threatened. Jumps in and tries to save her. A brawl ensues, and these chevra were stronger than he was, a few against one, and they overpowered him. They took him out, and they held a mock, I call it, tribunal, and they decided that he is deserving of the death penalty for undermining and interfering with the Bolshevik Revolution. The next day, going to take him out, some yard someplace, and shoot him. Next morning, going out to be shot. And one young man is sort of volunteered to do the honors. Takes him out, has him at the end of the field, the yard, whatever, and he looks him in the face and says, "Do you remember me?" He says, "No. Who are you?" He says, "A few years ago, we were in high school together, and I didn't have any money, and I needed a new shirt, and I needed a haircut, and you gave me some money. I want to pay you back. Run for your life." This man was saved, and Shalshel is how he eventually, came and whatever, but he was an old man when I knew him. So here we see, of course, such hashkocha pratis, but we see something else. which is a critical ingredient in appreciating Hashem and in connecting with Hashem, even in the moments where it seems so unlikely. 10:30 at night, I'm leaving at 7:30 in the morning. Where am I going to get to 75 cents? I'm being taken out to be shot. And who of all people is going to shoot me? A person that a few years ago I happened to give a couple of bucks, and he wants to now pay me back. And I think there's a very profound lesson, and that is sometimes we face a situation and it seems dismal. It seems all lost. It seems desperate. What's going to be? How could there be anything? We need a nes golui to get out of it. And our children sometimes are in such situations and they're ready to give up. And sometimes we can't imagine that Hashem's going to do such a miracle for us. But we find so many times in life that it was done already. He prepared it months ago. He prepared it years ago. This incident that took place in high school a few years before was the incident that HaKadosh Baruch Hu orchestrated to save this fellow's life. This Purim carnival where this girl borrowed 75 cents was the incident that Hashem orchestrated to be able to provide this money when her father Nebuch couldn't give it to her. And if we look at life that way, and if we know that it's not only Nisim Gluyim that we need, but Hashem is involved constantly in our situation, seeing it meroish, planning it from before, orchestrating events so that eventually things are going to work out at the last moment when all seems so dismal and desperate. That can really broaden our sense of appreciation of Hashem and the ability that we have to rely on Him. The truth of the matter is, this is the story of the Megillah. This is the story of Purim. Everything seemed like so many events took place over a period of more than 10 years, but they were all leading up to Revach v'Hatzolah LaYehudim. And this is the way Hashem runs His world. And it's so important to be able to connect our children with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They have to know His Hashkocha Protis. They have to know His involvement in our lives. They have to know that Hashem is all-powerful. He's the Koel Yochel. Every time they say the name of Hashem, they should not just say, Baruch Hashem. Hashem is the Adoin HaKoil, the master of all. Aleph, Dalet, Nun, Yud, the master of all. And that's a critical lesson. Just recently realized that it's so important to teach our children Adoin Olam. Those words are so profound in giving us a description of who Hashem is, and who Keli b'chaygoyali b'tzurchevli b'istzoro, and the personal relationship that I have with Him. And that can be reviewed. It's very difficult. With the younger children, even more difficult. We have our own problems with that. Every time we recite the name Hashem, the Shem Hashem, He's the Adon HaKoil. But we should also realize something else when we make a brocha. He's the Adon HaKoil. He's Elokeinu. We have this Elokim Shelanu. He's not only the Shefet and the Shalit, the judge and the controller, but He also is ours. We have this personal relationship, but He's the Melech HaOlam. What's this Melech HaOlam? And if we could think about those words, and if our children could learn to know what those words mean, it could have such a tender ingredient adding to that relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this is a story I heard from my mother-in-law, Zechreina Livrocha. It was a woman, an almona, who was used to make bagels every day and take them to the shuk to sell to support her family. She would stand in the shuk the whole day until she sold all her bagels. One day, it was getting dark already, and she hadn't sold a bagel. She was very distraught. It's time to go home. Okay, what can I do? She's on her way home, not too happy about the day's failure. And all of a sudden, somebody passes by. What do you have in the basket? Oh, I have bagels. How many? This. I need them all. I'm making a simcha. And buys everything. And she's walking home and she says, Rabbeinu Shalom, you're so busy with so many more important things in the world, so many earth-shattering responsibilities, what's going on in this world. Where do you find the time to look into the basket of this poor almona to see what's going on with her bagel sales? The Melech HaOlam. There's so many critical things going on in the world today. In that Shaya, in Eretz Yisrael, all over the world, here, there, everywhere. There are too many to enumerate. And the Melech HaOlam has the time, the love, the involvement, the patience to be involved. Sha'akol niyeh b'dvoroi. I have what to drink. Boirim min ha'mezonos. I have what to, a piece of cake. Amoitzi lechem min ha'oretz. All the birchas hashachar, pekei acharivim, malbish arumim, matir asurim, zekif kifufim. Noisin layoif koyach. Involved personally in every aspect. So many more important things are going on. I'm one small person, and not always even deserving of all the kindness that I get. That picture, every time they say a brocha, you're the Mekor HaBrochos, you're the Adon HaKol, you're the Elokim Shalonu, and you're the Melech HaOlam that provides us with all of our needs. These are things that have to become part of our daily routine with our children. It's not enough to say words. It's not enough to teach responsibilities. They must also have this sense of connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And sometimes this connection can also be fostered by realizing the benefits of the mitzvahs that they do. You know, Chazal tell us, it's a Medrash Rabbi in Parshas Lech Lecho, that Imras Hashem Tzrufo, Le'nitno ha-mitzvahs ela litzaref benes habriyos. The mitzvahs are given only for one purpose, to refine human character. Everything that we do is part of Hashem's plan to make us more godly, to make us more like Him, to enable us to connect better with Hashem because I'm more like Him. If I'm a liar, I can't have a very close relationship with a person who's totally emes. If I'm an achzor, I'm a cruel person, I can't possibly relate to someone who's so kind and giving. We have to have a commonality. We have to have some identity between us. The mitzvah of the mitzvahs HaTorah create, letzarif, and remove the impurities from our character so we become deimel Hashem, ahu rachum, afator rachum, ahu chanun, afator chanun, v'chulei, v'chulei. And therefore we become further able to connect. Purifying, refining our character is such an uplifting feeling. It makes us feel so good about ourselves. Happiness is really defined as feeling good about myself. Osher is ishur, validation. I feel good about myself. I'm godly. I'm more godly. I'm ever more godly. Every time I do mitzvahs, I increase that godliness within me. I refine my character further and further. Mitzvahs bein odom lachaberoi, and even mitzvahs bein odom lamokoim, because when I connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I crave more to be like Him. I'm more involved with Him, and I want to refine my character to be more and more like Hashem. And all of these things make a life of Torah and mitzvahs so much more meaningful. So I believe that, especially at a time like Shavuos, when it's the anniversary of Matan Torah, and when the Cohen tells us that the tachlis of Matan Torah was that bitochen, that relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that we should commit ourselves to do everything that we possibly can in telling them about, in introducing them, and in showing them, and constantly pointing out and sharing and noticing so much hashgacha process that exists in the world, and such a recognition of Hashem's chesed to us, and Hashem's involvement with every aspect of our lives, and Hashem's ability to do anything and everything, and our ability to rely on Him. And I believe that the more that we will introduce our children to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we will share with them the best friendship that we have with Him, we will inspire a generation that will truly be motivated, passionately motivated to follow in the Derech Hashem, and will be zeicha to see the fulfillment of the posuk ve'amech kulam tzadikim ken yehi rotzein b'mheira b'yameinu.